From the people who help you know your competition, IntelliCheck presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way.
My name is Russell B. Hill, and I'm the co-founder of Fixed Ops Marketing, the host of WTF, which is What the Fixed Ops, as well as the Institute of Higher Learning, what we call Fixed Ops Institute. For 3 years, I had an assumed identity because I was wanted in 2 states, Texas for probation violation and New Mexico for trafficking and conspiracy. So I ended up leaving and driving all the way to Tacoma, Washington. I left a trail because they were in the hunt for me, that it ended up there. Back then, things were different, but the only place I could find the books is How to Disappear and How to Change Your Name. So I bought these books. I flew back to Texas. My brother picked me up. I spent several days researching. Back then it was microfilm in a library. And with what I learned in those books, I procured a new birth certificate, a new driver's license. I was in the car business. I put myself into the reporting system and I was hired. During that 3 years, I worked at a dealership as my assumed name, which was Danny Hoyt. And my ex-wife, I let her into my life during that time, which I shouldn't have done. So one of the sales managers called me up to the desk and said, go see the service director back there. He's got a client he wants to talk to you. So I did. I walked back there. I've done it many times before. And right when I'm walking through the threshold, I can see him standing over there, standing up, which is unusual. I see these eyeballs behind the door. And it's the FBI and local police, and they had guns and threw me up against the wall and said, who are you? I said, well, I'm Danny Hoyt. And he said, no, you're not. I've always been fascinated by cars and motorcycles. And 1968, when Hot Wheels hit the scene, I was hooked ever since then.
At the time of this episode's production, I was in the middle of rewatching my favorite television show of all time, Lost. And once you get past all the mysteries that the show throws at you, you realize that at its core, Lost is a show about redemption and the relationships that we make along the way. The main characters are seemingly hopelessly flawed in some way or another, but all come to a fork in the road, a pivot point, and they eventually make the right choice in order to save the world from darkness. And as good as the writers were on Lost, I don't think that even they could write a better story of redemption than Russell B. Hill's.
So there's 2 important dates in my life: the day I was born and the day I figured out why. So I grew up in a upper middle class family, mom and dad, etc. Had an older brother and younger sister. They were great in sports. They were great in school. And I was the black sheep of the family. I didn't fit in anywhere. Low self-esteem, lack of conviction, ADHD type A personality. They didn't know, Brandon, back then what that was. I mean, I went to psychiatrists. They tied reading glasses, maybe thought I was dyslexic or whatever the case may be. School just didn't work for me. I kept getting put back. I started using in the 6th grade. I started smoking pot and eating White Cross. They call it trucker speed back then. By the time I got to the 8th grade, I was already mainlining or intravenous methamphetamine. That was the last grade I completed, was 8th grade in junior high. I never completed junior high, never went to high school. 5 felony convictions, 7 treatment programs, 2 halfway houses, and 6.5 years locked up. And that still didn't work. Even after I got out of prison, I went on another reign. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. It's really amazing. I don't think a lot of people understand addiction, but the last 2.5 year stint that I did, it's like the beast kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And when I got out and started using again, it's like I picked up and it accelerated from where I left off. It wasn't just starting from the beginning. It was horrible. I was in an apartment, and this was in November of 1994, about the 29th of November. And I was so high and so drunk. I don't know if I had a heart attack. I had some real problems. Well, I decided, even though I was committing slow suicide, I was going to end it all. And this is the first time I ever thought that. For 10 years prior to that, I knew I had a problem. It's not like I didn't know. I knew. I just couldn't stop. The only time I could ever stop, Brandon, is when I got stopped by the police. So I got down on my knees. I had this knife and I was fixing to end it all. And I've always made deals with God, for years and years and years. God, if you do this, then I'll do that, and all that stuff. So I got down on my knees to pray again. And then that moment, I like to refer to it as a burning bush variety. It wasn't a religious thing. It was a very profound spiritual experience I had in that moment. And I don't know if it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes. People try to get me to kind of talk like, what was it like? I can't really explain it, but I can tell you I wasn't high or drunk anymore in that moment. And the obsession and craving for drugs and alcohol was completely removed. And I have not had it since then. Now, at that time, I needed to go to another treatment program. I knew at that moment, when I'm talking about total surrender, that I ceased fighting everybody and everything. I realized in that moment, while all that was going on, that it's over. That was my fork in the road. That was the crossroad. That was whatever you wanted to call it. I thought I'd hit that before, but never anything like this, where I knew that everything that happened in my life and where I was at in that moment was nobody else's fault. It was all mine because of the choices that I made in my life. I remember in this last treatment facility, the lady that ran the place, I was very gun ho, and she said, "Listen, it's time for you to start looking for a job and getting back into society." And she said, "The car business is not for you. It's not conducive. You don't need to get back in the car business." Brandon, I really didn't have any other choices with all my felony convictions, all the things that it didn't happen. So I remember filling out a resume, visiting a bunch of dealers. This one Nissan and Mitsubishi store. I didn't want to be a manager. All I wanted to do was sell cars at that time, and it was my third time in the store. And it's like sales managers didn't want to visit with me at all. So I'm interacting with the receptionist, the gatekeeper. She was very friendly. I'm very outspoken most of the time, and we were talking and giggling and laughing. And this guy peeked his head outside the door, happened to be the owner of the company, and said, "I'll talk to you. Come on in." It was amazing. We talked about this kind of stuff right here. And in the end, he said, "Russell, I'm just curious. Why did you tell me the things that you did? You were very transparent." And I said, "Well, if you would have checked some of my references, you would have got some feedback different, unlike it is today because of HR, but you would have found out something." And so I thought, okay, if I tell you who I am and what happened to me and you hired me, you're the kind of guy I want to work for. And if I do and you don't, then I didn't want to work for you anyway. And so he hired me on the spot. It was amazing. And then shortly after that, I'm still involved today. I still go to meetings every single week. I still sponsor people. It's a passion that I have. Sometimes people refer to me as the AA bully because I just don't jack around. When someone approaches me and would like me to sponsor them, I'm pretty hard on them. I just have a few things I ask them to do. And if they can't do that, don't call me. Don't waste my time. You're not ready. I was ready and I knew what it was. This is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It affects every single person in the United States, if not the world. We either directly or indirectly know somebody's had substance abuse or alcohol related or gambling problems, porn, whatever it is. We got challenges and problems. And I wanted to help as many people as I possibly could because I realized that in order to keep what I have to give it away and that it's all an inside job. When I started selling cars, I adopted a completely new philosophy. Instead of working the customer, Brandon, and instead of working the desk and manipulating both sides, understanding where I was at in the deal and trying to maximize my gross, I stopped all that. I just focus on the customer, the client. The most important thing in the car business is the guest, the client, the customer. I focus genuinely on their needs, wants, and desires. I'm a great relationship guy. And I ended up selling more cars and making more money that way than I did trying to manipulate, and anxiety and stress and all the other things that came along with it. So it was really a pivoting time in my life. And then at the end of 1999, I'm through a networking thing I was involved with. I met this guy, very successful, and I always thought that millionaires were like unapproachable. But I approached this guy, and I asked him if I could take him to lunch. I wanted to find out more about him and what he does and how he makes decisions and is so successful at what he does. And he did, and we were talking, and I said, I would like to work with you. I want to make more significant changes in my life, and I don't know how to do that. So I thought, okay, 95% of the population gets their information from the same 95% of the population that has what they have or less than what they have, and they wonder why the hell they don't have anymore. So I realized during those days, and it's an important fabric and makeup of who I am today, there's only three things that are going to determine a different tomorrow, and it's not rocket science. So people are all the time talking about just didn't happen. We know the greatest predictor of human behavior, future behavior, is what their previous behavior was. So if I'm a sum total right now, Brandon, of everything I've ever seen, heard, read, and done up until this moment, I know what the tomorrow in the next 30 days is going to look like when I'm talking to people. And I just know, except for three things: what you read, what you listen to, and who you associate with. If you don't input new information, you can't get new output. You're going to become a victim of the insanity because you're not doing anything different, but you're expecting different results, but you're not doing anything to get it. So this mentor looked at me and he said, Russell, are you willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do so that you can have and become the things that most people will never have and never become? I said, yes. He said, I'm going to work with you. We're going to start off this way. And he explained to me a lot of things about comfort zones and two types of fear of what you know and fear of what you don't know. And he said, I'm going to work with you and I'm going to make suggestions. You don't have to obviously do them. And if you don't, the next time we meet, it's over. Don't call me anymore. Because I'm not focusing on what you're doing. I'm focusing on the people I'm following. So if you want what I got, because you don't have anything that I want, there's no agenda. There's nothing but genuine. I will help you like somebody helped me realize the same stuff. So he gave me a book. He said, I want you to read 15 minutes a day, not 14 and a half, not 15 and a half. Don't finish the paragraph. You stop at 15 minutes. And he said, if you'll do this and the other things that we're going to talk about when we get together, I guarantee you in 1 year, your life will transform and set you on a trajectory that you only thought existed for a handful of people. So he gave me a book, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it wasn't even a year, it was 6 months. I get goosebumps talking about it. It sent me on an insatiable quest that to this day, I got 5 books on my desk. Reading is an important part because all leaders are readers, true leaders, servant leaders, but not all readers are leaders.
We'll learn how Fixed Ops marketing came to be, what it does, WTF, and more after a word from our sponsor. Perception is not always reality.
And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And IntelliCheck kind of confirms that that's not the case.
IntelliCheck helps dealerships become aware of where their prices stand in regard to their competitors.
And IntelliCheck does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market.
And this allows dealerships to make their customers aware of their competitive pricing.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. Also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there, so when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Introducing IntelliShare. IntelliShare contains all of IntelliCheck's promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including Intella Ads, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, Intella Media for your digital media boards, and Intella Widgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget.
Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to IntelliCheck.com to find out more about how the IntelliShare series can help you grow your business.
I was using a company at my dealership called Car Research. And back then we had uplogs, right? Everybody wrote everything down. And at night we would fax it over to this company and they would do first party calls for unsold follow-up for, people that didn't buy cars. Fascinating information, very revealing. I actually went to work for them in January of 2000. And about 6 months later, we started designing CRM software. And the product was called Car Research. And it really grew fast. Back then, there wasn't long selling cycles. They closed real quick. I had Group 1, Van Tile organization, goes on and on and on. I was with that company for 11 years, left, sold my shares of stock, walked away, and bought into another company just started called R&D Interactive, where we did websites, email marketing, paid search, etc. And we gave that company hell for 9.5 years. I met my business partner, actually, Rick Eckert, at Car Research. He had another company at the time. He was an old Reynolds guy, websites, etc. So we actually resold his websites to Group 1 and other companies. And then when we started this other company, we gave it hell for 9.5 years. We were undercapitalized. There was too many partners. Some of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about. You learn a lot about partnerships, stock options, things of that nature. So we decided to go our separate ways. And he and I were talking before that happened. We said, okay, what is the next big thing out there? And we thought it had to do with fixed operations. So we put together a very detailed business plan. He flew in from Oregon. I set up 3 meetings in one day in Houston. By the time we got to the third meeting in the afternoon, the first guy called and said, I'm in for all the money, because that's what we were looking for as investors, seed money. And we've never looked back. We rolled our first product out January 7th, 2020, and a month and a half later, COVID hit. And it's like, oh my gosh, the whole world is burning, right? Our company flourished. And here we are today. As of 2 days ago, we celebrated 4 years. So we just started our 5th year.
So what exactly does Fixed Ops marketing do?
Over 80% of all consumer consumption today is video-based. Everybody wants video. So when we created this company and built this company, we did it on a technology platform first, but there had to be a lot of automation involved. See, I know, and all of you out there know, that nobody has time. Everybody's wearing hats. Everybody's busy. And so we also know that here's the 3 scenarios when you go to a dealer's website and you're looking for service, parts, and accessories. No specials at this time, under construction, check back later. Handful of static images, Brandon, they look great. The customer can't do anything with them. The third one, which I see most commonly, is a handful of coupons, specials, or offers that have some pricing information on there. And you might be able to link to scheduling service or to print the coupon. I still see some brand with a pair of scissors cutting out a dotted line. Are you kidding me? We're in the 21st century. So what we wanted to do is we want to take dealerships out of the 20th century and bring them into the 21st century with technology and tools. So when I'm doing presentations and I talk to them and they see our stuff, not only does it rival anything they're doing on the variable side, but most of the time it exceeds it. And it also affects the variable side because our stuff is so sticky. So we created these video coupons. We have over 1,200 video coupons in our library, all done by us in-house. Half English, half Spanish. We're working on other languages this year as well, like Canadian French is next. These are all explainer videos. They're very short. Basically, we created a full-blown service website, Brandon, that resides inside the dealer's existing website with autoplay videos, custom dealer branded videos, Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, Google business profiles, SEO, and paid search as well, and email marketing and other types of products. So when I'm talking to people, I already know. I start with, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, starting with the end in mind. So a lot of times I'll tell them the price of the products and I'll say, there's no usernames and there's no passwords. There's nothing for you to do. Because I know they're thinking about these things during the presentation, whether I'm in person or online. Most of it's on Zoom. And so I wanted to take that out of the way because I know I questioned some of them. I'll say, hey, how many vendors have you had that required somebody at the dealership to do something on a daily or weekly basis to achieve those desired goals or results that you were promised? Most of them are. But 3 months later, the controller's going, what are we paying $1,200 for? That doesn't work. Cancel it. It's not because it doesn't work, perhaps sometimes, in the overall scheme of things, because the dealership is not doing what they need to be doing. With turnover, they forgot to do it that day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I take that out of the equation because I know they're thinking, oh my God, who's going to manage this, right? So there are no usernames or password because of the automation. The results are staggering and phenomenal. The time spent on the page are equally phenomenal. We track revenue as well. But to be able to have an explainer video for each and every service that a particular dealership has is powerful, extremely powerful. When we talk about scheduling service, what most dealers that I talk to don't even realize, 77% of the people nationally that start the service scheduling process, they don't finish it. Too many clicks, they don't know the mileage on their car, etc. So whether a customer is 18 years old or 80 years old, we have a conversion mechanism that engages those customers in a way that they've never seen on a dealership's website. And it's just amazing technology.
And then there's the podcast, WTF, that I have listened to on numerous occasions to research guests that I wanted on the Multi-Point Inspection podcast.
Charity is our chief marketing officer, and she's brilliant. And we didn't have a budget for years, still don't have much of a budget, but everything that she's done for a company, for the most part, has been organic. And our presence is everywhere, every single day. So she talked about a podcast. And I hear, probably like you, I hear a lot of people talk about they want to start a podcast. I don't have the right equipment. I really, don't know what it looks like or how it doesn't make. You just have to get started. You just got to start. Well, Charity came up with, it's all her, just incidentally. She's always promoting me and lifting me up. And, I'm the face of the company, et cetera, because I've been in the business 38 years. I know a lot of people, one from being in retail and one from all the companies I've had. But she came up with a WTF. Most people are thinking something different than what the fixed ops. It was very catchy. And so we just started and here we are. I mean, it's extremely popular, a lot of followers. We get some very influential people. At first, it was like we struggled just to get people on there. But Charity does it all behind the scenes. She comes up with the questions. I do get, probably most of the guests. Now she's starting to get a lot of those too because of the notoriety that we have. But we'll record an hour-long episode, and then her and her team, Patrick, I want to mention him. He's phenomenal. They will cut this podcast up into like 20 to 24 short segments and edit it. And there's a lot. I have no idea. I know it's a lot. I hear people talk about editing. It's just a nightmare, right? Time-consuming. I'm ADHD, won't do it. And then they'll distribute it on 9 or 10 different platforms. And it's amazing. It's worked out amazing.
Russell says that there's a seismic shift occurring in fixed ops departments as it pertains to getting and retaining customers at the dealership.
I believe that there is a huge paradigm shift taking place in fixed operations and sales as well, but mostly fixed operations. Depending on who I talk to around the country, Brandon, it's about the same story. By the time we get to the end of the warranty period, 7 out of 10 people have already defected. It starts at 7 to 12 months. Why are they defecting? Transparency is a lot of it. As a result, for the last 30 years, what we've done is we've educated the customers, and consequently, not my numbers, but NADA says for every franchise dealer, there's 16 non-franchise entities that we are driving by to get to that franchise dealer. Things got to change. They know it's got to change. Once again, I'm in these rooms in the morning, sales or fixed operations, talking about the same crap that I was complaining about in 1985. Talk about insanity. So there's a lot of things out there to change that. And one of them, the biggest one, although there's many contributing factors, what is the common denominator for these defections? Customers aren't educated. We send them packing down the road. You got 1,600 discount tire centers over in the country. That's just one of the, not the independents out there. And dealers are getting back into the tire game because we realize the single largest purchase that somebody's going to make during the warranty period are tires. And if they don't buy it from you, you lose them. The long game is, and we know now, discount tire, phenomenal. Tires, rims, and wiper blades, that's where it ends. Nobody's better equipped to handle any related services, whether it be major repairs, recommended maintenance intervals, etc., than your franchise dealership. So we have to educate customers. Our stuff actually does that. Well, not only that, when you drive across the threshold, they have technology now where you know the camber, the toe, the camber, the wear and tear, you know the tire inflation, you know everything about that car. It does all the videos. You're driving through the threshold. It checks alignment. It knows if there's dings and dents as you're driving through, and they pull it up instantly. And this gives people a talking point. So if they buy tires, 67% of those people will continue to service with you, and they will buy a new or pre-owned vehicle from you. That's one. The second one is oil changes. When you see a $29.95 as you're passing Pep Boys down the road, and you're paying $89.95 at the dealership for oil change, we take for granted customers know the difference between conventional, semi-synthetic, and full synthetic oil change. They don't know. They don't know. They would probably like to know. Well, we educate them on that. There's a big difference between a $29.95 and an $89.95 oil change. There is. Not only that, but having those schedules and the history in your car make your car more valuable. And it goes on and on and on. They stand behind the work they do. Yeah, they make mistakes. Well, then the third one, plus it gives the advisors talking points. Then when it's on the rack, video MPIs, huge. They need to be done. If somebody comes out and says you need brakes, first of all, you should have been set up from your previous visit. But let's say they're not. Okay, and you got the technician while the car's on the lift, your pads are gone and your rotors are scorched. They need to be turned and you need new pads. You need a brake job. Well, you show the customer that. That's transparent. They don't think you're trying to take their head off because that's what they think. Well, the third one is transparency on pricing. What's going on with these non-franchise entities? What are they charging? Are you competitive? Are you the highest, the lowest, right in the middle? If you can prove that, and there's tools out there for that, if you can prove that to them, they're going to say yes. If they need a brake job, for heaven's sake, the man or woman that just pulled across the threshold that you just told them that, they got 2 car seats in there. Are you kidding me? Do they need to leave without brakes? Shame on you if you're not doing that. Well, that's the kind of stuff. Now we got pick up and drop off, contactless pay. You got mobile service. There's a plethora of things that are happening as we speak that are going to revolutionize this in the next 2 or 3 years. And we're going to take that business back. And the biggest thing that will make that happen are EVs. Oh, we can't make any money. No. The oil change for ICE cars is the new tires for electric vehicles. They're not going to independents. They have to come back to the franchise dealer. So they're going to have an EV, but they're also going to have a couple ICE vehicles too. So if they haven't been using you because of whatever, they're going to have to now because you have an electric vehicle and they need to bring it to your dealership. And we have an opportunity now like we've never had in our life to take that back. And dealerships are waking up. They smell the roses. And we want to be a part and are a part of that revolution.
And Russell has a message to those who might have once had big dreams but have long given up on them.
What I found, the older that we get as people, because all my life, people said, Russell, you can't do that. I tried that. That won't work. The odds are stacked against you because of your addiction, because of your felonies, because of your education. And I just did. And they're still doing the same thing, getting the same results, which is horrible. And it's unfortunate. What do you want? What are you willing to do? I mean, we got to get up and do something. It has to impact other people. It can't be about you and on and on and on. When I'm talking to people, I want to find out, because the older we get, because we were told you can't do that, I tried that, that won't work. We have these great big goals and dreams and aspirations in elementary school and junior high and high school, and we're going to go to college and we're going to get this degree. And it's unfortunate, 92% of those people that get a degree, heavily debt laden with student debt, they don't even work in the chosen field they've got a degree in, and they think that's all it takes to make it in the world, and it's not. So I'm here to tell you, whatever it is that you want, if I can do it, you can do it. It's just going to require a commitment. And here's one of the things I do know. Over the years, our dreams are really emotional. The older we get, the harder it is to revive those and to dig those up and get them out of people to really share, because they say, oh, you can't do that. I tried that. That won't work, right? And so they're real careful about who they share that with. And I'm telling you all out there, you have to be vulnerable. When you shut down, you go backwards. Yeah, I know life hurts. I know we put people on a pedestal. We love people and they hurt us and they fall short. I'll never do that again. You always do that. If I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Man, get back up. Let people know who you are and what you want.
Oh, and that story from the beginning of the episode where the police were waiting on Russell in the service department? Here's how it ended.
3 months later, I ended up resolving all of that, believe it or not. And I came back to Texas after going to New Mexico and getting all that resolved. And I was hired back as Russell Hill and promoted as leasing manager. And the general manager of that and owner of that store is still a dear friend of mine today. And every year, when I get my sobriety chip, I text him, and sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't, even to this day.
I'd like to thank Russell B. Hill with Fixed Ops Marketing for a truly inspirational interview. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producers for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast are Melissa Marlette and Joe Gibson. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is Yellowstone by Reveille. IntelliCheck. Know your competition.